In our first lecture, I gave you some information or some ideas about how you might go about ending your own course. In this lecture, I'm going to just take those to the next level. I want you to think about the last few days of a course. It's usually quite hectic for both the students and the teacher. There's grades that are due, there's final projects to be completed, there's a review of those final projects. So it's really easy to miss the final chances to wrap up a course and to celebrate the learning that has taken place. Ending a course with a final exam is not a good idea, but it's done day after day after day. But what happens is it leaves the students with a feeling of dread and maybe even inadequacy. That isolation that we've talked about so often throughout this course certainly comes back because those students are on their own to finalize that exam. A better goal for all of us to help our students leave the course on a happy note is to talk with them about what they've learned and how they can carry that knowledge and that skill base into future experiences. And those experiences might be future classes, it might be a job, it might even be interacting with family. But let's look at a few other tips that might be helpful. Why not pull out the syllabus and look at the objectives? Ask students to do that. They have a copy of the syllabus right there in their online class. Ask them to read through those learning outcomes. Ask them to read through the description of the course. And then maybe even post a note to each other in the forum. One last final note exploring what they learned. This approach helps you as a professor review the major concepts that were covered in the class, but it also establishes a sense of accomplishment for your students. It's particularly useful if you want to review what's been done in the class and how the class relates to the goals that your students had. Next, I suggest that you ask the students to reflect on their new knowledge. You can do this as a group or you can do it individually. But where are they now versus where they were when your term or your course began? What are the most important topics that they've gained in this course? I want them to be able to synthesize the information that we learned, relate it to the learning outcomes, and then relate it to their life, to real world scenarios. If we just take knowledge and put it on the shelf as we do books, then there's no reason for us to continue learning in this way. I think it's also important to have students think about their learning approach. Every student comes with their own place in their home set up with their laptop. They come with their own learning styles. They come with their own time management skills or lack thereof. But I would like them to reflect on the learning approaches that they took in this course. Are there things that they might want to change for future classes? And I find this is especially helpful for students who have struggled in this particular class. And sometimes I'll send an extra email to those students in the last week and ask them to do just that. Reflect on your learning approaches and decide how you can change the things that didn't work in this class before you enter the doors or the virtual classroom of the next class. I think that learning can't just stop with the students. I think it's important for all of us as professors to share what we learned in this class. Maybe we didn't learn more content, although I bet you did, but maybe we learned better ways to approach students, better ways to approach um, the evaluation process. When we share those experiences with our students, we're modeling lifelong learning and acknowledging that we all are learning together. So I want my students to know that I came in with some trepidation on the first week of class. I never enter a new class unless I'm a bit fearful. I want to do the very, very best I can for my students. So I also want to share with them at the end what I accomplished and what I learned. We might also want students to look ahead. Look ahead to how this new knowledge or the new skills that they've gained might help in application for new jobs. Is it information that they can take immediately to their colleagues or peers and they can share? How will this help them better interact electronically, digitally, or face to face with people they work with or people that they encounter every day? So I just want them to know that we learned more in this class than simply the content. Every online class teaches us how to interact in a learning community and how to collaborate. That's a skill that every student will need. When I taught in the traditional classrooms, my last day of class was always a pizza party or cupcakes or something fun to celebrate the accomplishments that we had made. I haven't quite figured out how to do that online, but I'm working on it. But I think we need to realize that the last day of class needs to be a celebration. It doesn't mean the exam or the final project that's really just the dumping, the flushing out of all the knowledge, but it's a reflection of the knowledge that you have gained. And in this class, you'll see each week we've had a reflection question. And I would hope that students would go back over those reflection questions and see just how far they have come week by week. I also believe that the last day of class is a place for you as the instructor to shine. You can't physically shake the hand of every student that you have, but you can thank them and you can wish them the best on their upcoming classes. You can point out some of those difficult times to them and how they overcame that. This is a time to celebrate, and this is a time for you to be classy as a professor. We need to find ways to make the last day of class important. This is the last day these students will be in this learning community. And we've talked so much about the importance of presence in the classroom and building those connections in our learning community. Well, the last day of the class is the last day of that learning community. The doors, the gates are closing on that particular community. But that doesn't mean that you should send your students off as individuals. You can send them off as a group that made it together. Do that in a classy way and celebrate your own success as a professor.